in those of you who hung around and watched some basketball tonight. We are doing the Tom Brady retirement show part 2 right now.
Yeah.
Bob, no, we're not.
Off the air.
I know. Off the air we were. On the air, we're here to talk about the Celtics. Though Evan Lazar and I were on Patriots Press Pass earlier today talking about the Brady retirement news as it was unfolding and changing and getting interesting. But nonetheless, we're still confident that Tom Brady did, in fact, retire. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Marcus Smart minutes versus Dennis Schroeder minutes, and that's what it's all about tonight, Bobby.
Yes, let's start it right off the top.
Well,
Let's waste no time. It was
we might,
kind of
we,
dull.
you might,
We
yeah.
had a mini Smart debate, and listen, this isn't Celtics Postgame Show without a Smart debate last night, but it wasn't the same without you, and the viewers were actually missing you quite a bit. I felt like the first time ever. Yeah,
I don't believe you, Bobby. I think they missed me before.
So we'll get into it tonight. Obviously, we get our guys down in New Orleans, but once again, let's just start right there. Why not? That's the only interesting thing.
It's the only interesting thing. And I know what you're going to say, and you may know what I'm going to say, but it doesn't really matter. The truth is always somewhere kind of in the middle. And I know, so I'll let you go first and take your little Marcus Smart victory lap. The reality is, for the game, they played a JV lineup, which was great. Because they needed to get right, and they did. So you're not going to fault them for going out there and drilling these guys. You get Tatum and Brown with their 30 spots again, just like they had against Sacramento, and Rob was friggin' all over the place again. But no matter, despite the fact that Rob Williams had a monster game, and Tatum and Brown scored like 70 points combined, we're going to make this the Marcus Smart versus Dennis Schroeder show yet again.
Yeah, and it's easy to, because the minutes swung along those lines in many ways. I thought, like, the Pelicans stormed back into the game during those bench rotations, and it's not just Schroeder. I thought Richardson's had a few rough games in a row here. The whole second unit rotation, especially in that Atlanta game, just killed them in the first half in this game and in the Atlanta game. So you ended up with a lot more structure, I thought, in this game, not only due to Smart's defense, which is just kind of an obvious at this point, but against the zone. And that's one of the scary things about this one. And every time they've gone against the zone this season, all the way back to the 2020 Heat series, is their ineptitude against a 2-3 zone. Not being able to find driving angles, as Ime talked about pregame. But Smart, he goes out there, he mans the high post, gets to all the right spots against it, and produces some easy looks against that zone. 12 assists here in this game. So his organization, to me, I don't really care what the stats are. It could be 5 assists, it could be 12 assists, it could be 15 points, 5 or 0. Just the way he structures things out there, I think, is so important. Yeah. And you just don't get that with Schroeder. Schroeder can have those big scoring nights, but what they need are the things Smart brings.
I know, but you say that, but the numbers don't. That's the problem in the argument here. It's Smart against a go. It's not a fair fight ever, because what happened tonight? Smart's playing most of his minutes with Rob, Jason, and Jalen, who are literally just friggin' blowing it up. I mean, they're out there and they're unstoppable forces. And then Schroeder plays in a mixed match lineup. You're sitting here, it's not comparable. But when you look at all of the metrics right now, the best 3 players on the Celtics are Jalen, Jason, and Rob. The net rating with them on the floor with Schroeder and on the floor with Smart all season long is identical. Schroeder, when he plays as a starter, has ridiculously good numbers and the team runs effectively. When he plays off the bench, he's less effective. It's not super surprising when these guys are both in here, when their minutes are separated and Smart is playing with the starters and Schroeder with the bench, there's a massive disparity. But I mean, a lot of that has to do with Smart's playing with the far better basketball players. The drop off from starters to bench is so severe. How can it not be lopsided? That's kind of what I'm talking about. I don't understand how people miss that in the conversation. There's empirical evidence to support it. They're about the same when they start, and they're about the same with the best players on the team.
I think on the offensive end, sure. Now,
you see the massive disparity in the ratings. The offensive rating with Schroeder and those guys is 12 points higher, but the defensive rating is 12 points higher also. So, I mean, obviously it's a different game, but it's a matter of just what it does. It's a different kind of, he plays a totally different style. So then it comes down to, what style do you want? And obviously you like the settle down. And there's no question Marcus does more things to settle things down. He's not looking for his shot first. And if that's what you want, absolutely that's a better option. It's just when it depends who they're playing with. Schroeder in that bench unit, he's had horrible games there when he gets relegated to the bench.
He's shooting
horrible.
like mid-30s
Awful.
percentage-wise there.
The number swing is huge there. So
and listen, you admit, John, that was supposed to be his role on this team. I mean, that was the understanding coming in, that he was supposed to produce in that role. So if he didn't have all those opportunities to start, you'd probably be talking about a pretty rough season for Schroeder.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. But the other Marcus conversation is not any Marcus conversation that's had is Marcus Smart the best point guard they currently have? It's, do they need a better point guard than Marcus Smart? That's the argument. So it doesn't matter on good games, bad games. People who believe it continue to believe it, and people who don't will continue to not. And that's kind of it. So you're pointing to a series of numbers that lack context. And that's always kind of the problem with the debate. Rather than doing a scorecard of one good game, one bad game, when Marcus plays bad, people are flipping out. Get him out of here, trade him. He's the problem. When he plays well, see, he's the point guard. We can't ride these swings back and forth. The idea is you've seen enough of him to make a judgment at this point. Is he your guy? And again, we're going to get into the article today because that was one of the more interesting things, but let's give Josue a chance. He's there. He's in the court. He's reporting from New Orleans. Your thoughts on the game. And we already started on the
Smoothie King Arena.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called still?
Yeah, that's still what it's called. It's a little rowdy right now. They got a little post-game fan thing going on, so hopefully they end soon. But yeah, I mean
that
overall, yeah, I know, but some franchises have to do it, man. Let me tell you real quick before I start. Out of all the arenas I've been to, man, tonight this is the quietest I've ever heard of.
It's bad there.
It was really bad here.
Yeah,
I haven't been here in a couple.
Isn't Atlanta pretty bad?
Atlanta was rocking. We were talking
Atlanta's
about that.
like a club, bro. What do you mean?
I know there was that. I just mean in terms of interest for the game. Every Atlanta venue I've been in, and I've seen multiple sports there, I view them as the worst.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, that's a good
the worst. It's the only football crowd. That's anyway. Go ahead, Josue.
No, I was just gonna say honestly, just what you were just saying. You take away the 5-game winning streak going into it. I'm not quite sure they'd be that rowdy. So that had a lot to do with it too. Plus they're
a fun team.
Healthy.
Yeah,
exactly. They're a fun team to watch, and the injuries sort of, as we all know, has knocked off their season a bit. So now they're sort of picking up momentum, and they beat the Celtics obviously, and the Celtics bounced back. I thought in a good way because of Tatum and Brown. I just think that was the story in this one. That their offense allowed the Celtics to control the pace a bit. I thought they did a good job of coming out in the second half and showing the Pelicans a little bit of their other guys getting involved. The way they were able to pass the ball around. I thought that when the Pelicans did get momentum, he made some really good timeouts, and you saw those ATOs coming out of the timeouts. Listen, Tatum and Brown, when you have those two guys playing the way they did, you should win this way, right? Probably should have won by even more. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is just where this team is at right now. They're just still trying to find momentum over and over again, even though it felt like those the 2 games in a row. Actually, you know what? It didn't feel like it was like a turning point. That's not what I meant. I mean, like after those 2 games in a row, you felt like there was going to be a change in their offense. And
yeah,
minus the Atlanta Hawks outing, I think we've seen that thus far. But we want to see more of it, and obviously consistency.
Yeah. People want to know about the bike, Josue.
A couple bike sightings I heard.
That bike was pretty far away.
It was like buried. Sherrod, did you see it? I was trying to find it, and Zannis, I think you found it before I did. You found it before I did when you tweeted out that picture.
Well, the broadcast had him on it twice, and it was inadvertent. They were just talking about him doing well, and so they wanted to go to a cutaway, and naturally, this is how you produce television. You talk about a guy, you're looking to find him on the bench, but since he's not there, they're like, oh, shit, move the camera. Where is he? He's over here. And he's like behind people and squeezed into a corner. It was a tight spot. Anyway, Sherrod, first, tucked away. Sherrod, impressions of the game as you join us.
Tatum, Brown did what they do. Nothing special about this game. Schroeder was especially horrible tonight.
That's where we started. Yeah.
But again, to me, this game was a reminder of why Tatum and Brown. We talk so much about those guys and what they can do and what they can't do and all that, but they don't have a hell of a lot behind them.
Right.
This was a night where those guys should have been playing. They should
That
have had
bench
to play major
stinks
minutes.
right now.
It's a
Oh my
horrible bench.
lord.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Grant, who is solid, but again, he wasn't, I think, very good tonight. Josh Richardson, who's usually pretty good, I didn't think he was particularly good tonight. Marcus Smart had a great game. 11 assists is tied a season high. But for the most part, it was the Tatum Brown show.
What
And
if
Rob.
Rob? What
Right,
have we
Rob,
learned,
too.
guys? What is this? What have we learned with the bench players when they play? This is the problem of full health. When they play exclusively with bench guys, they suck. When they play,
Yeah, but
with
there's some staggering going on.
I mean,
there.
no. Look at Grant when he's not out there playing the 4 or even the small ball 5 in a lineup that has Tatum and Brown and Smart. His numbers crater when he's out there in that Schroeder-Richardson lineup. He's far less effective. When Schroeder, as we said earlier, is just running with the bench, as we said all season long, Schroeder as a starter has been excellent. And overall metrics of the team have been pretty good, similar to what you have with Smart. Schroeder on the bench is awful, and we know that that's what he was supposed to be. Grant is almost invisible some of these times on the bench when he's not getting starter run minutes. It's really
Well, it's a Tatum thing, right?
It's really tough, right? Right now, the bench, if you just took 5 and 5, the next 5 is really, the 5 through 10 on this group on their own is rough.
So the rotation right now, going back a little while, is sort of Tatum and Brown, obviously,
And
to
then they
start the
alternate.
game.
Yeah.
And then Brown actually is leading the bench unit quite a bit, going back about a month or so here. And that rotation, that staggering right there, doesn't always work all that well to me. I don't see Brown commanding those units with great poise. He's aggressive in his own scoring game, and he has cracked open these defenses over the last couple games here, but he's not a guy who's going to actively involve much of the bench around him. And Schroeder, he's a good passer. I think a lot of his assist action early this season, as you talk about, John, comes from playing with better finishers and more active offensive players there. But you see him too, like when they're out there together, these aren't guys who can effectively involve others. You almost want to see Smart out there staggering with the second unit.
Honestly,
too.
that would help. That's the strange thing is like that the combos are lacking, right? No matter what. And this is why we talked about earlier in the year, mix and match some, just because you need to come up with combos that are going to work at other stages of the game. And that's why we always said, insert Grant into that lineup. Definitely don't play Smart and Schroeder together. Leave some juice for that second unit so they can operate in a bit more of a functional level. And they don't. And you end up playing a ton of starter minutes, even in a blowout game against a JV squad.
And
here,
now
which
Horford
isn't great.
Too. Like that development over the last
on a
month
back-to-back
or two,
on top of that.
Second on a back-to-back. There was the last back-to-back. I remember he played Tatum like 40 in the second one. Like it's a problem here, and
they're getting super thin here midway.
Got to figure it out. Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's the identity of this team. I mean, obviously, this is stating the obvious, right? When Tatum and Brown play like this, they're a much different team. But when you don't see one of those guys, feeling it, like, I don't know, last night against the Hawks, Tatum had a slow start. You have to have those other guys, those options 3, 4, and 5 that you can lean on. And the Celtics just don't have those guys because you don't know who 3, 4, and 5 are yet. You know what I mean? Some nights it could be, even Smart sometimes can come up big, right? Or Grant. Grant has a couple of games where he's feeling it from deep and he's got things going. But you can't constantly rely on that because we're not quite sure we're going to get it every single time out, So I just think at the end of the day that these rotations and what Ime is trying to figure out here, it's like, which team is it? Like what's this team going to be like in a week from now or 2 weeks from now? Of course, leading to the deadline.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at moving facilitators, Schroeder in particular. There, you don't have many. It felt like to start this year, you had a number of guys who could set up offense.
It feels like Pritchard's in the doghouse right now. Maybe
Pritchard's
that's a little
disappeared.
Harsh, but
Romeo strides at this point.
I gotta ask. I gotta ask Sherrod here. Is this the day you're selling your Romeo stock?
No,
this might be the day.
No,
this might be the day.
I'm still. But John, I am like right there on the cliff. I've got my hand in my wallet.
65 seconds.
He's texting this guy. He's like, no, trust me, man, you don't want to sell. Don't want to sell yet.
This was bad.
It's Saturday, Sherrod. You gotta wait till Monday.
It feels like it's getting progressively worse. So
it's so
we
depressing.
haven't even talked about Neesmith either. So, I mean, geez.
I can't anymore. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
I still believe playing the kids, had they done it over a period of time, if they committed to it last year, you'd have guys you could count on. Obviously, it's so hard to Neesmith is so hard to count on. Just because, again, he's still the guy who just looks like. But Romeo, you've seen at times. I mean, a few games ago, he had one of the better games, and then they got healthy, and Ime sent him into Siberia again, which was stunning to me. And since then, you just haven't really gotten a lot. You got a good effort from last game too. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
And he's a guy who.
And then going out with a heel. This is, like I said, come on, my man. Like, you got to recognize, like, you're not in good standing. Like, you're not. And Ime had those comments earlier when he's clearly talking about Rob. And I'm sure Romeo was there too. And the comments were something to the line of, some people got to learn to kind of play through some of the bumps and bruises. And I've talked with Rob about that and others is obviously Romeo there. So, like, dude, that thing has to be about to be amputated for you not to play. Get out there and play basketball, man.
He had a weird moment too. It was the end of the Kings game, and he was out there in garbage time, and he took a tough spill. I don't really know what happened. And he was getting up off the ground really slowly, and Ime's just kind of looking at him, and he's like walking back on offense. The game ends, and Romeo just kind of like stormed right to the locker room past Ime while everyone was celebrating. It was just a weird moment to cap that game off.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on with him right now.
He needs some bike time
because. If they dump off some veterans here, like it feels like they could, he all of a sudden is going to be a pretty prominent member of the rotation, even in a facilitating role. Like I was just mentioning there, not many guys who are setting up offense. He at least has the skill set to start to do that some more. And he just doesn't feel all that involved right now. And you talk about the injuries. That's been a thing with him forever, John. I don't know. I've never been a big Romeo guy.
His
really
career is hanging in the balance. Like, I mean, he's got to figure this stuff out, man.
Well, I don't know. Ime said post game it was Achilles thing. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it's his
Just
career.
waited. The friggin' party bus just let out. I'm going to mute you there, big guy. Go ahead.
Romeo, I don't think it's as much his career as it is his career in Boston. I mean, he's young enough and he's shown enough promise where if he flames out here, someone is going to keep him around. He's a guy that minimum he's going to be in the league another 4 or 5 years because of all the potential and upside in his youth. But damn,
I know.
This was painful.
Watch, we're going to find out afterwards he friggin' tore his Achilles, then we're going to feel bad. But again, it's a cry wolf situation. He's just gone out with these little nicks and bumps and whatever. And it's just, man, I don't know. I don't know. I do feel bad to talk about it until you know what it is. But if he shows back up and plays in the next game, it's like,
well, listen, Ime talked about it.
How bad could it be? There's been a couple where he's like out for leaves the game, doesn't come back, and then plays in the next one. You probably could have just played in that one. Like, you're either injured where you need rehabilitation and rest and time, or you're hurt, which means play. It's hurt versus injured. It's two different things.
Yeah, you had sore neck with Romeo and sore toe with Rob at points during this year.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm sure it hurts a lot, but it is part of the job sometimes, playing through pain.
Yeah. It is indeed. Other observations for tonight, guys. We'll give you a bite at the apple because we started it. It's an obvious thing that people are going to talk about, and Sherrod alluded to it briefly. But I mean, you have the Smart minutes, and you have the Schroeder minutes. I do think, again, not in defense of Dennis Schroeder. I thought Dennis Schroeder was awful tonight, and I thought Marcus Smart was really effective. But Schroeder running with that second unit is bad. And the Smart minutes are always going to look better because he's out there with Rob and Jason and Rob Rob and Jason and Jalen all the time. And sometimes Horford, sometimes whoever they've decided to close with, but it's always better supporting cast and it's always going to fit better.
But you know what, John? Here's the thing though. I mean, there were stretches where he was out there with Tatum and he screwed that up.
Schroeder had an awful game tonight, but over the course of the season, he has played well with the starters. Tonight,
it seems he's gotten progressively worse as we've gotten deeper into the season, though. And I can't understand why that is.
He was on a Jalen J. Rich lineup tonight that didn't quite work there. There's just some funky things that aren't working for him. He had a string of games where Smart was out, where he was scoring a ton. But the record was spotty. Smart comes back. He's relegated to the bench. He's had a series of not great games. It's kind of been the story this year. He just has not been great on that bench unit, which is a bummer because that's the point he got brought in. But Smart's so much under fire right now. So let's talk about him. He has a conversation today, the other day, with the Athletic, and gives another series of comments. It's the second time this week he's talked about like himself. You know, the first one is how he volunteers information that he told all of his teammates he loved them, which was odd. And then it wasn't really followed up by anybody on the team. And then in this interview, he starts talking about, I'm the point guard. Everybody doubts me. Even Ime doesn't really think I'm the guy. It was kind of strange. Impressions overall on just kind of how he's been acting and talking here about him and himself. It's almost like he's auditioning for a job he already has, trying to prove to people that he's the right guy, hoping to stick, maybe fearing that he might be on the way out. I can't quite get a read on what's going on with Marcus right now.
I think that there's something to that. You know, Marcus, first of all, he's always been someone who has found ways to motivate himself, even if there's not. And this is, to me, this is one of those ways. But I also think that there's some truth in him feeling as though he has to prove himself to guys that he technically shouldn't have to prove himself to. I mean, when you look around at this roster, you look at their guard situation, he is their best playmaker, regardless of what fans believe. And does that mean he's a great playmaker? No. But when you look at this roster and you look at their backcourt, he's that guy. So with that knowledge, he doesn't just want to be that guy. He wants to be the guy that these guys believe in. And I think that he's in a weird spot because of his contract, because of the trade deadline, because the team has been underachieving wins and losses, that a lot of attention is going to be focused on what can we do to make this team better. And he's someone that has a lot of, frankly, transferable skills, where you could see someone saying, we need a guy that's a little bit more bent on defense, and we'll give you someone who's a little bit more bent as a scorer. And so I think I know Marcus wants to stay in Boston. That I do know for a fact. But he also is smart enough to know that anything and everything can happen.
Is that going on behind you, Sherrod? Because Josue is muted. Is there some action?
There's nothing going on behind me. There's literally a wall.
Josue, how am I hearing this through you right now? You're on mute, right?
It's so loud that it's breaking the mute.
There's some people in front of me who are shooting, and it's a lot. And I guess could be Pelicans players for all we know. I mean, the way these shots are just clanging off the damn backboard.
Yeah, Zion's getting some workout now that the arena's clear, so he doesn't want to be seen.
Zion is thousands of miles away. Can't be far enough.
Did you say thousands of pounds? Oh, you said thousands of miles. Sorry.
Yeah.
But the Smart stuff, my read on it, Josue, is yes, I agree with you 1,000%. Sherrod, the self-motivation thing is always there. He's been friggin' motivated by the Garden Report. You know, like we know he's looking for reasons.
He's been that way.
Kendrick Perkins, of course, chip on the shoulder guy from the get-go. Guys like that exist, and it's great because it fuels their hate fire, and that gets them going.
We talked about this yesterday, John. How do you feel about we'll stay on this.
No, really quickly. But the thing in this one, and we all kind of talked about it, we all agree a little bit. It's almost like what strikes me about the comments recently is no one's come over the top and been like, oh yeah, Marcus told us he loves us and we said we love him too. Or Marcus, there's a lot of heat about Marcus being the point guard. Like, he's absolutely our guy. We love him. We love it when he's leading us out there. He keeps us together and he keeps us calm. There's not a lot of doubling down on what Marcus himself is saying about himself, which is weird. And we talked about that with Brad last year. No one's getting Brad's back. It kind of feels like no one's getting Marcus's back, or not in a big enough way right now. So I wonder if he's kind of looking around the room like, did I kind of go too far with some of this stuff? Maybe the criticism of the Jays wasn't great. Did I lose them? Did I lose them somewhere? Josue, you're kind of nodding.
Yeah, and that's too bad if that's happening, because he spoke the truth. Yeah. He was speaking truth.
I was for it because I was getting annoyed with them. I agree with you, Sherrod.
And it bothers me if they're not mentally strong enough to handle that kind of truth from a guy who has been through the battles of being on a sub-500 team and getting into the playoffs, to seeing them ascend to being a team that's a game away from getting to the NBA Finals. And why would you not embrace what he's trying to talk to you about? when you know where it's coming from. It's not he's not grandstanding. He's actually trying to help you become a better player. And his play of late has, I think, really kind of doubled down on what he's saying. I think early on he was saying one thing, but his play wasn't really backing that up. But the last few games, I think he really is trying to consciously will his words into action, being more of a pass-first playmaker.
You're not wrong, Sherrod. Everything you're saying is right. But what's interesting is he still feels it. He still feels doubted. And then he delivered those comments before the Atlanta game. Then that night in the game, he enters the game with the Celtics down 1. He exits it after a 19-2 run where everything fell apart. And yes, there were some smart Schroeder minutes there that didn't go well at all, but neither of them got to play point guard. So when he's saying, I don't think Ime thinks I'm the guy for it, later that game, Smart's out there with Schroeder and Ime's having the offense run through Tatum again, and they freaking fell apart. So he's thinking to himself, he said earlier in the year, give me the ball, let me run it, trust me, I'll make these guys better. Part of his criticism of Tatum and Brown was, give me the friggin' ball. And then again, how many times have we seen him in a closing lineup where he doesn't have the ball in his hands? Someone is making that decision. So he's not paranoid. He's actually sensing it. The coach isn't giving it to me, and I don't think the players necessarily want me to be the guy.
That is exactly what I saw last night, and it's super concerning because
right?
If you're Brown and Tatum and you're reading and reacting to the game and you're in charge of what's going on out there, and I got a piece coming out in BSJ tomorrow that sort of looks at these fourth quarter issues that they have, and it's clear that Ime wants them to figure out themselves. There's plays out of timeouts that he sets up, but overall they're not a coaching staff that micromanages these guys and the flow and ebbs of the game. You might hate that, but it's not all that uncommon in the NBA today. In the chat here, a lot of people are like, why doesn't Ime fix this? It's sort of Brown and Tatum's job to steer the ship in these moments, and they seem to be the ones in these critical situations who don't defer to Smart, either because they don't think he's capable of it, they think they're in better positions to do these things. And listen, Ime has dictated this in some regard too by saying Brown and Tatum are playmakers, so he has sort of relegated Smart to at least somewhat of a secondary ball handling role. But when you're Brown and Tatum and you see what Smart did in that third quarter yesterday, where I thought he was just awesome, you have to make that decision to look at him and say, all right, we give him the ball, he might shoot, he might do something crazy, but in this game, he's made all the right plays, he's pushed all the right buttons, he might get us easier looks. We might be able to reposition ourselves off Smart's passes and movement to get easy catch and shoot opportunities.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what systematically is going wrong for them in the fourth quarters. Brown and Tatum try to take control of this thing themselves or just do simple drive and kick actions where they could defer to some of their other fellow ball handlers in these spots and do actions themselves to get them even easier looks.
Yeah. Josue, you were nodding earlier just on the whole Smart stuff. What's your take on it? Nope, still on mute. I can unmute you. Go ahead.
Oh.
No, nothing's happening.
No, I fully agree with you, John.
Hold on. Let's see, Josue, are you there? Can you talk again?
You got me?
Go for it. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Don't touch it. All right. I think we're muting and unmuting at the same time, but okay.
Probably, yeah.
No, I was going to say, look, it all started from the beginning, okay? You made Udoka put it out there and said, look, I need 2 captains, not 1, but 2. I thought that was a clear-cut message that he wanted those guys to do it. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. This is supposed to be their year. This is their team now. All right. There's no Kemba. There's no Gordon. We talked about this before, right? And they didn't. So Marcus
I'm with you.
took the mantle. Is Marcus Smart he's always been that guy. If you don't want to do it, I'll do it. I'm not afraid to be that guy. Okay. 2 weeks into it, I'm the point guard of this team. I don't like the way this thing is going. I'm going to call you guys out. Okay. Oh, look, you had your opportunity to be captain. I'm going to take care of things now. Not to say that he has the title, but I think we all know it's sort of unofficial captain, right? It's been Marcus Smart, this entire season, regardless of how people feel about him being the starting point guard of this team. He's always taken on that role. Okay, so you fast forward to him saying those comments. The Celtics turn things around temporarily, right? But then a lot of things happen between the injuries and COVID protocols, and all of a sudden, this team is a 500 team that can't just, find themselves, so to speak. And I think Marcus has been the guy in the locker room that's just been maybe not speaking his mind, but he's not afraid to tell people when they're not doing what he thinks is the right amount of effort, or what he thinks that these guys are supposed to be doing. And honestly, I think we reached a point where maybe a lot of these guys in the locker room, or at least some of them, maybe he's lost their they're not listening to him.
That's my
reporting-
worry.
The
that's
reporting's
what it
been
is,
pretty clear.
And you know what? You talked about what Ime, the fact that he brought up Ime. No, he didn't say that he has to try to convince Ime. He just says that he challenges him, which is what your head coach is supposed to do. I mean, this is your first time as the head, official starting point guard of this team, and you have a brand new head coach, so you have to prove your case here. And right now, although he has improved, individual as a point guard of this team,
This is unreal.
In contrast to last season, I mean, this team is still 500, and
That's the problem.
It isn't where they're supposed to be. When you look at
that
the talent,
line-
and you look at having two all-star talents in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, two of the best scorers in the NBA right now.
It is unreal what he said. As a point guard, when everybody else is going scattered, you have to kind of be the one to calm everyone down. I've been challenged from Ime, everybody else, that I'm not the right person in this position to do it, even though every time I go out there, I do it and it shows.
Challenge. Not that Ime doesn't believe in him, but I'm constantly being challenged.
And he walked it back. He's like, well, he didn't say it, but it's with his actions.
He's going to use that.
He's clearly pointing to these late game situations when the ball's
And
being
I
taken out of his
agree.
hand. That's clearly what that meant. And then it happened that night, which is nuts to me, because that interview was before the game, after shoot around or after whatever. And that happened later that night. Again, takes the ball out of his hands. So again, whether it's Ime or it's Ime kind of reading the room, or Ime, I don't know what it is, but I think Smart is now aware of it. And he's struggling to kind of get it back somehow. And it would be a shame if it happened, because he is so critical to the team in so many different ways. But some guys just don't want to hear it. And look, the problem with Smart was always not that people don't think he tries hard and he fights and this and that. It's
this is what terrifies me.
It's you do a lot of shit we don't love too, man. So you can't hold me accountable for everything I do that's a little bit off script. When you're out there freestyling, friggin' flipping the ball over your head, trying to make creative passes,
the game tonight,
shooting threes. So have you noticed, not just with his words, with his shot attempts, he is on best behavior right now. 5 shots,
Smart's corner.
5 shots, 2 shots. This is clearly something that feels like it's a conscious thing right now. Sherrod,
he went scoreless the other day.
Who is in Smart's corner, Sherrod? Because you read, Brad doesn't like him and that Mannix thing, and there's division within the front office, and maybe they want to move on from him. He's out there, as Lo says, that his name's out there, but he's still here after all these years, and he's extended. Like that divide in the reporting is crazy to me.
He's still here, and when he plays, you still see night in and night out the value that he brings to this team. And if I'm Marcus Smart, I'm very frustrated, because I'm doing pretty much what you're asking me to do as far as being more of a playmaker. And then when the game matters most, you take the damn ball out of my hands. You make me stand in the corner, something I told you guys about months ago. It doesn't make sense if you're not winning games this way. Why would you take the guy who is your best passer, your best playmaker, and basically put him in a box when the games matter most, and let your 2 all-stars go to work? But the problem is they're better finishers than they are playmakers, Jalen and Jason.
It's inverted, right? They have Smart being a finisher.
It makes no sense why his role gets so diminished.
If the ball's not in his hands, he's useless in the stretch, right, Sherrod?
It is. Because it's known fact. He's not a shooter, particularly when you're on the floor with a Tatum and Brown, who are shooters. I don't understand. I'm impressed that Marcus Smart has not gone total postal at some point, because what's happening to him.
He is handling this very well.
Make it. I will say this: the Marcus Smart that we're looking at in 21-22 is so much more in control than the one that we saw 3, 4, 5 years ago. Because that guy he would have snapped and then some on anyone and everyone around him. So he has matured in many respects, but I would love to see at some point between now and the end of the season, let him be your leader in the fourth quarter. Let him negotiate and navigate those fourth quarter waters, where right now, that's kind of where you're losing a lot of games. let the guy who you've been charged with being your leader do that down the stretch. It doesn't make any sense.
This
Well, a few
terrifies
things
me.
don't make sense. This is the one thing we'll knock, like I think with Ime. There's some stubbornness here.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Whether it's like
Right.
the insistence on the double big because of the defense thing, or these these closing lineups that sometimes have gone double point guards, or the ones that take the ball out of the hands of a point guard. If your biggest problem right now is that, in terms of your record in fourth quarter and the clutch numbers and this and that, you try something different, man. Like, it's insane to keep going back to it and to keep putting the ball in Tatum's
Especially
hands.
since this is stuff you need. He's after the New York meltdown. We need
Sink
someone
or
to calm
swim.
us.
Try it out. It's strange
need-
not to. Yeah.
We need someone to calm us down, Ime says. We need a leader to emerge. We need someone who just makes things easier for everyone. He's not ideal, but we talk about it night in, night out. He's the best they have by far, really.
That's the whole
That's
argument.
what I keep coming back to. He's the best you got.
He's the
you
best they
don't
have.
anything better than that. Just because you don't have a Maybach, if you got a nice, SUV, that's the best you got. It can get you from point A to point B. It may not be the top of the line.
It's terrifying that they
it
aren't
gets you
able to. Yeah, it's terrifying that they aren't able to shift in this direction because they're systematically failing in crunch time, and it's happening over and over again. You're not seeing the adjustments. So this is one of those things you can look at with Ime. This should be one of the things that he's able to accomplish there by using a little more of a heavy hand in these situations. I don't know what it is about him that makes him so passive, and I'd say just willing to deter to the players in this spot and what they want and the main guys in the room, whether it's Brown or Tatum, and how they feel about him, because I think that is what's dictating this. I don't know what else would be.
If you're going to make that pivot away from Marcus down the stretch, here's a thought. How about pivot to your next best playmaker, a guy named Rob Williams? That's
the other thing. How do they box him out too?
I don't understand. You have two really good playmakers. Not great. They're not setting the world on fire. Like, you're not going to confuse Rob Williams with Jokic. You're not going to confuse Marcus Smart with Chris Paul. But they're the best that you've got. Why is their role as being playmakers so diminished when the games matter most? And they're the two best you have at that. It doesn't make sense.
It is strange. It's like, it doesn't make sense.
Last night was horrible.
You have to play to strengths. Last night was. I'm so glad I didn't do the show last night. I just
you would have been pissed.
I don't have it in me, man. Like, you see that and you're just like, what the hell? What is going on
here? They worked so hard in that third quarter to come back down 15. The Hawks were playing well in the first half, and they just threw it in the trash. They said, we're just going to dominate the ball, turn it over like crazy, box out these two great playmakers and Rob and Smart. It was despicable. It was so bad. And listen, I don't think we've probably given more than most, but I don't think the Celtics press at large or whoever it is has given Brown and Tatum enough due criticism this year, because you blame the stuff around them, you blame the coach, you blame this and that. They're the ones in control. They have the keys.
If Jimmy were here, his head would snap, Bob, because we've been trying to say this for a long time. It's these guys are the guys, and it revolves around them. So they've got to be consistently good. They've got to be trying to involve people to make them better. They got to give effort night in, night out, and play in, play out. You see a night like last night when they're literally just dribbling into whoever and whipping the ball all over the place. That stuff's inexcusable. I'll even give Marcus a pass. When he is in the game late, like, those guys are just, they take the ball and they don't give it back. They're just standing around.
We've done a lot of fair share of blaming the role
Those
players
guys
over
have,
the years.
since last year in my slices of blame pie, and everyone would say it's Danny, it's Brad. I'm always going to these guys because, with great power comes great responsibility. You got to be the guys, man.
Yeah.
And we just keep finding. Jimmy has the best analogy of all. It's like they're like people's children. There's nothing wrong with your kids, It's somebody else's fault. It's not your kid who's messing up at school. It's the school, It's not his fault that he's not playing. It's the coach, it's everything is somebody else's fault. It really does revolve around those guys making the pieces around them fit as best they can. It's not perfect, but you can do more with it than they've done.
100%.
Yeah.
They have
no
more
question.
help this year than last year. They do. And, they've gotten good years out of the Richardsons. Grant, certainly. Schroeder's been good. You look at all these pieces that they have around them. There aren't many guys on the roster who are disappointing. Horford lately, but Rob's been excellent. He's really having just a
Yeah.
massive leap this year. There's stuff to work with here. There's not a ton of shooting, and that's a concern, but this too, falling in love with the threes, that's on them as well, what they've done in spots.
Let me ask Josue and Sherrod, you're there. Let's look at the game itself tonight. Obviously, like, it's so hard to size this up when you're playing against a team that's already missing its best player because of, all of his issues. Then you're without Ingram, and you're without Valanciunas. I mean, they're really, and they're bad to begin with. So this is as bad a team as you're going to face. So it's hard to size it up, but from a style point, just the way they played the game, it did seem to be more movement, quicker decisions, more aggressive sort of play, certainly in the first half when they built up the big lead. Did you guys like what you saw, particularly out of Tatum and Brown, who were clearly in like attack mode?
I love what I saw. But Sherrod didn't trust it. No, I just wanted to get that out there before you said it, because I remember in the beginning he was like, I don't know, just something about this doesn't feel right. And then what was it? By the second quarter, he was like, okay, I would be surprised if the Celtics lost this one. But I thought that they controlled the tempo and the fact that Tatum came out red hot, which was the complete opposite of what happened in Atlanta, right? He was 0 for 7 to start. I think that what Jimmy was talking about last night sort of popped in my head, attitude reflects leadership, and I felt like guys sort of jumped in with him, and at least they were able to control the pace. But even though that lead got down to 12 and even got down to 8 before the start of the fourth quarter, they never lost their composure. They never got into hero mode, hero ball.
This game early on reminded me of really good AAU basketball, where you had one team. You had one team that had like the 5-star recruit, and he was teamed with another 5-star recruit, and they were playing a team that had a bunch of 2s and 3s. And what do you do in those games? You absolutely dominate. You remind people why you're the best player on the floor. And I thought Jalen and Jason did that from the outset. And then Ime, he did what you're supposed to do. You give your second unit a shot. You throw them out there. And then all of a sudden, you've got Schroeder with a -10 plus-minus for like 3 minutes of being on the floor. You've got guys missing shots. Grant's losing the ball out of bounds. And then it's just like you're still in control of the game. And then, and I don't know if you guys talked about it earlier, but the damn zone offense that the Celtics run.
It's bad.
It's
so bad.
They're so easy to stop. Pack the paint, put a big man in there, block some shots, or run a zone.
Get to the free throw.
And that's another thing. What does Smart do when he goes out there? He gets right to the free throw line. He knows exactly where to go. No one else does.
Exactly where to go. He knows exactly where to go, exactly where to get the ball. And too often when they're in their zone offense, they're not letting him direct it. He's literally the only perimeter guy they have that has a clue about how to attack a zone.
Yeah. I wanted to mention this about Jason Tatum stats. If you guys can see the graphic on the screen, one of the more remarkable things about it, just do the math on it. Look at his field goals, and then look at his 3-point field goals. 13 for 13 in 2-point shots, getting to the rim and finishing. And I loved some of the contested shots he took because it wasn't way out near the 3-point line, setting up long step back 2. It was sizing up his guy, getting to a spot, getting separation and shooting over the top. So even the contested 2s were great shots, most of them.
No free throws, John.
Yeah,
0.
But he just 13 for 13 for 2 for a guy who's had a difficult time and not only getting to the rim, but finishing there was outstanding. And again, it's a little concerning after a couple of games where you're like, is a 3-point shooting back to have a night like last night and then again tonight where he's just firing it and it's not going down, because that inconsistency is still there. You really want to see him turn that corner and not look back. But that's obviously like an awesome stat for him.
I feel like it was the stubbornness of the zone. I feel like he was like, no, not against these guys. I'm not struggling against these guys. He just shot it right over guys, and he was successful. You saw a couple of those threes go right in back-to-back possessions, and the Pelicans shot away from the zone, but then they went right back into it. It was different stretches throughout when they kept going back to it.
Yeah, I love the fact that they would move the ball around, and the next thing you know, you've got 6'7" Jaylen Brown matched up against 6'3" Jose Alvarado.
Alvarez.
He just shoots right over the top of him.
Alvarado.
And again, But we saw them not do that in those back-to-back games against Charlotte and Portland when there's no rim protection there at all, and they still opted to take 40-something threes in each of those games, and it's frustrating when you don't. And in this, at least you recognize these guys can't stop. I can shoot over the top of this guy, and I can take it right to the paint, and there's nothing there. So you're right. If you have that, take advantage of it. How many times you see Tatum on a mismatch setting up a guy for a step-back three? That's not what you do with mismatches. You attack these guys, but you do it quickly before the defense settles. And when there's no resistance in the paint at all, you have to take full advantage of it.
That's a great stat, the 13 for 13. Only one other player has done that in Celtics history. Can you guess who?
Larry Bird.
Gordon Hayward.
Rob.
Our old friend Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
16 for 16 in a 2019 game.
Wow. He did have a couple of those, like 18 for 20 games, I remember. That's crazy.
It was probably against the Timberwolves. It was against the Timberwolves, wasn't it?
I still think he's what they're missing, but...
Yeah, an all-star caliber wing, that'd be pretty good. That sounds good to me.
They don't have those.
Yeah, so we do have a couple. The smart stuff again. It's got to stay interesting because it's in the ether. But we've talked about it a great deal.
How do you like the Herder? How do you like the Herder rumor?
Herder out there. I don't know if Atlanta does that. I don't know if Atlanta needs that. Again,
should Boston do that?
The best thing you're going to do with Marcus, if you make a trade, you have the option of
both.
Take a step back and build towards the future and get some assets, or the strength for strength trade. From Boston's perspective, if you want to stay relevant, defense for offense makes sense. You're going to lose something, but you're going to gain something somewhere else. And can you make the pieces fit around it so overall the whole is going to be better? I don't know, maybe, but that's what you'd look at. Herder's a better defender than people give him credit for, by the way.
I was impressed yesterday.
He's a pretty good perimeter defender. His shot's not falling at the same clip this year as it was last. So I don't know. I don't know what Atlanta's necessarily looking for there, but that's going to stay interesting. And there's something going on there, that we'll talk about. But we've got 2 games coming up here that are pretty important in the next 2. You've got Miami coming in on Monday. That's pretty scary. And then is it another one with Charlotte?
Yeah.
I feel like after these 2 games, we're going to have a good idea what you want, whether you want to go into buy or sell mode, right? You've got your full team minus Romeo's heel. In these 2, I'm sorry.
I've already decided.
Minus his heel.
Sherrod, I'm with you. It makes me sad, but I've tried, man. You and I have tried. We've tried. But, I mean, you've got your full team. You're home for 2 of them, right? What can you do? This is it. Can you play against a team that's kind of on that bubble line that looks like they're a little bit better than you, that beat you last week, and the top team in the East? Are you in their class? Can you stay with these people? I think these 2 games are pretty important. If you lay an egg in both of them, I think you got to come out of it and might have to have a bit of a reality check and say, maybe we look towards next year. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I already decided.
They're not going to make it.
I've already decided too, Bobby. I'm just wondering what they're going to decide. And Sherrod, I don't know if you have any thoughts there.
I don't think it'll be as blatant as you put it.
Yeah.
It should be. Pick a direction here. I mean, this is the kind of game.
You and I are decided. Sherrod, what do you think here? Do you think the team is looking at any of these next coming games? Is there a cutoff? Is there somewhere in there where they say, by this date, if we don't feel we're doing it, we're going in this direction versus that direction?
I think they're at that point now.
You think so?
I think they have to be looking and saying, look, we need some clarity on this. We're getting all our guys back. We've had a few games with our full group intact for the most part, and this is who we are. This is what we're going to be about. And do we want to continue on this path? Do we want to go young and get Neesmith and Pritchard and Grant more minutes, or do we want to try to get a player that can help us in the short and long term, like a Kevin Huerter, from Atlanta? I don't know what direction they're going to go, but playing a team like Miami and Charlotte gives you a better sense of where you are, because you've got one team that is the class of the East, and you got another team that you're chasing to get into. And if you go out and get your ass kicked badly by both of those teams, that's your answer. If you're able to somehow win those games or at least be competitive, it gives you a sense of where you are at. But bottom line, with this team, it's not even about forget competitive. You got to win these games. if you're seriously going to double down and stick with this crew, because if you go out and get your ass, even if it's a close game, even if you compete, that's what you've been doing of late this season. You're competing, but are you winning? The good teams find ways to win at some point. If you're not a good team, then what the hell are you playing for?
This is the
Yeah.
this is the
I think-
fallacy of the season. Go ahead, Josue.
No, I was just gonna say. I just think that report was what was it? The Athletic, I believe. It might have been them, but they're the ones that said that. Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. It was heavy. I'm sorry. My fault.
I was
man. It
gonna
was heavy,
say,
that's all.
are
Damn,
you kidding me?
Yo, there's so many reports out there, guys. You know, sometimes
Your
okay, my
editor's
bad.
on the
Both bad.
phone.
Both Steve, don't kill me. I believe it. I believe that they're trying to pave the way for guys like Pritchard and guys like Romeo or Neesmith. One of those two. I don't know if they're trying to pave the way for both of them, but one of them, either Neesmith or Romeo. But they're not going to make it as blatant. I don't know if they're just going to do a fire sale, because I don't think they want to send that message to Tatum and Brown. Even though that Tatum and Brown, I think, are going to see the picture if they haven't already. That
Dude,
this
look,
is sort of
all
quote
the
unquote
breakdowns that they're having to deal with when Schroeder and those guys are on the floor. If you told them that guy's gone,
I don't think they would care at all.
No,
And
I don't
Jimmy has
think-
said this
right.
too.
right. But I don't think that. I also don't think that they're not naive enough to think that you're going to bring in a 6-man or an ideal weapon to. Off of those guys, they know how this business works. They know that this team doesn't have a whole lot of assets. But I also think that they're stubborn enough to think that they could be an 8th or 7th seed and still make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I do think they believe that in themselves, that no other team in the East has a tandem like them, or at least a healthy one. So then there's that, you know.
Right. Like if they could get, like, to me, like one of those sneaky good trades of a guy that people aren't really talking a whole lot about, like getting a guy like Terrence Ross in here would be one of those sneaky good deals, because he's a scorer. That's what he does. That's literally the one thing he's done anywhere and everywhere he's been. They need to figure out a way to get those type of guys in here that can, frankly, give them something that they don't have right now. And there's a lot of things that they don't have, but that's one of them that I would hope that they could adjust between now and the trade deadline.
Yeah.
That's ideal. That's ideal. Just a knockdown shooter, even if he's a little, streaky at times.
That's the problem. Is
He is
everybody wants
He is,
shooting.
but at least that's something that you don't have right now. Like, not even close.
I know, but everybody likes shooting. You know.
They're not going to do that with the
Knicks.
TP,
The Knicks
just because of the tax
Yeah.
situation they're in. So I think everything's lining up. We talked a lot about it yesterday, the way the trade market's set right now, where a lot of these guys that Boston could hypothetically do a deal with are keyed in on the Simmons situation. So I don't think it's a good market for Boston to buy in. And I don't think you string this year along hoping that you figure it out and make a run or anything like that, because we've seen this group doesn't have it. I mean, this is you feel okay about a win like this, but what frustrates me about a game like this is you scrap out a win over this awful Pelicans team and you're like, all right, we're feeling good. We're getting something going here. You win 2 in a row against the Kings and the Wizards and you're like, oh, win streak. But where are you working toward here? It's up and down, and we're 2 years into this now. You have to start to set the table for what you're going to do in the offseason and the direction you're going to take this team. And I think the most straightforward way to do that at this point is to do a soft, selective sell. You're not going to get rid of Horford because there's no deal out there for that. But even if you get very minimal back, I just think you clear Schroeder and Richardson out of here, because losing them doesn't kill your chances at whatever you're going to do here, and you get a bigger look at these young guys, and you can ultimately move on from one or multiple of them if they don't pan out in bigger opportunities.
Really
I think that's a no-brainer.
Really quick, Marcus Smart talked a couple minutes ago, just some more weird stuff. The Smart was asked if his right hand is sore, and he said
some more weird stuff.
And he said, yeah, it gets like this ever since the picture frame incident. There's still some glass in there. The doctor said it would cause more issues to take out, so I still have glass in there. Sometimes I can really feel it in my hand.
Sherrod.
Okay.
That's when everyone screams out their follow-up question right after that.
If I were thinking about trading for him now or before, I'm probably not going to do it now.
Yeah. Oh my God. Is he doing this to not get traded?
Listen, if I were him,
it can't be
and I didn't want to get traded,
man.
I would absolutely put that stuff out there, and that's legit.
I want to go talk to him in the hallway, man.
I know people who've had those type of injuries where whatever fragments or whatever are.
He did think his career almost ended.
Yeah, I've got some nerve damage. No big deal.
It was close. It literally almost ended his career, Bobby. You're right. Yeah.
So
Okay, so there's that.
Love the transparency. Love the
Wait,
transparency.
where'd they? I don't know. Whatever.
Then there's just another series of chip on the shoulder stuff. Guys don't worry about giving the ball to me because they know I'll get it back to them. If they keep cutting, we'll get quality shots. I look forward to going out there and proving everybody wrong. There's just still a lot of that. So
Me against the
Here's-
world, us against the
that
world.
helps him play better to think like that, then I'm all for it. I am 100% for it.
I don't
But-
hate it.
Here's where I'm torn on this.
wait, hold
And
on,
I was-
Sherrod. What were you saying?
I just think it's funny because it's. Oh, sorry.
No, all I was going to say was that if that's what he needs to kind of play at his best, then fine. But one thing again that we keep coming back to is this: they're still not giving you the keys when it matters most in the fourth, and there's no rhyme or reason why that is. I'm a little puzzled by why that doesn't bother him more than he lets on, or maybe it does, and he's just putting up a brave front for us. But that would bother the hell out of me if I were playing the way he
Like I
was,
said,
and they take
it's-
the keys out of my hand in the fourth.
Yeah,
I
think it
almost
does
feel
bother
like
him.
it's like election season and like the trade
Yeah.
deadline is election day and he's just campaigning right now for like I'm the guy, keep me
That's
here. I'm a
exactly
good enough
what it
point
is.
guard. People like me, vote
Yeah.
Marcus. Like there's it feels like it's a campaign. Everything,
Yeah.
every time he talks, he's stumping right now. It's weird.
Yeah. And it's
So
almost
when
like the
that-
locker room is split. He's just trying to convince the others.
I don't
to,
know,
the
I don't
ones to
know.
make saves.
This
Honestly, no.
picture's-
I think you nailed it. I think this is exactly what it feels like. That's exactly what seems to be the vibe. With Marcus right now.
This
Yeah.
picture's been being painted for a little while now. Is there a divide between the Jays camp and the Smart camp here? However many people are in the Smart camp in that room. I don't know how many there are, but this is where I'm very conflicted because this is a stars league. This is generated by the talent, and we know that Smart, despite all his intangibles, is a little talent deficient here, and he's not necessarily the solution to. And it's no knock. He does a lot of great things in the passing and defense areas, but in terms of the scoring and the skills of putting the ball in the net, there's a few deficiencies there that, listen, you can't turn this over. I think some of the biggest Smart supporters picture this world where he has the ball in his hands all game long and he's solving all the issues. There's probably a point where there's diminishing returns in regard to what Smart can do, but we also know there's something deeper going on with this group here in terms of their just connectivity and being on the same page and their direction, all these different things, even within the room. There's front office concerns there too. But I'm torn here because if they really aren't jiving with Smart and the Jays are all in on that, I don't agree with it. But don't you as an organization kind of have to notice that and address it in some way?
I don't think the reason it's easy for people to deny it is because I don't think they're out on Smart. I just don't think they're all on board. I don't think
right.
I don't think they're all in, but they're not like get him out of here. It's
But even
not,
that's a
Yeah,
problem.
it's not a mutiny. I don't
it's
think
just
a
kind of
mutiny.
like,
Yeah. It's like,
I
this guy thinks he's like way more important than he is, or that he's.
But you know what that means,
He's
John?
the
They're
guy
always
that's
going
gonna
to
tell you
be.
what to do, but he's not gonna change his ways. That's
They're always
his
gonna-
attitude.
Yeah.
They're always going to be towing this line of not fully.
We've been friends for
involving
this
them.
long. You just got to tolerate them, anyway. But yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
You
it's part of the 500 march. You're not going to fully integrate them. You're not going to get rid of them. So you're just sort of towing this line and not really accomplishing anything. And how many games have we seen like this here where, you win, you get back to 500 or above it, but where are you going? This is just another night where I feel like that, and
yeah.
man, that Atlanta loss yesterday, I was watching this game the whole time. And even though they were winning, I'm like, what happened last night? Oh, that was so bad.
Yeah, I feel like he's definitely campaigning, John. That's a good way to put it. I feel like he's campaigning for everyone to believe in him, and I think that Marcus, in his own right, because of who he is as a player and as a person, he's thinking that he's gonna prove everybody wrong, and that the ultimate turnaround is going to happen. At the end of the day, this team is going to be able to say that it went as far in the playoffs than anyone else expected, and everything is going to work itself out. I think that Marcus truly believes that, and when you have two all-stars in Tatum and Brown, who obviously are going in the right direction right now, I think he likes his chances of this team finding itself and finally turning that corner while the record remains 500 or hovering over it.
Yeah.
It's just the story has not changed in the sense of the team's overall results. We don't know what team's going to show up on night in and night out, and we saw two great examples in these last two games, one in Atlanta, one in New Orleans, where it felt like it was two different teams.
I want to keep him. I don't think there's many deals out there.
That's your final decision? All right, worry about it. That's good.
No, I've always.
Bobby,
I've
you're
always,
but you're a smart guy.
You're a smart guy now. You just completely you
But-
converted
You
back.
just decided.
No,
Yeah.
but I
welcome,
wanted to.
Bobby. Welcome. We got a spot for you.
I wanted to be with him,
Have a seat.
empowered in the things that he does well.
I like
just-
smart. I want Wick to pay tax. I want more. I'd rather add than subtract. Okay, Marcus Smart, taking him out of the mix without getting something that makes you better. It only works if you've decided I'm going to build a little bit towards the future, and I'm going to take a step back and take a step forward. I've always said Marcus is more valuable to the Celtics, than he is to someone else, because I just don't think his trade value is that high. I think he's good for the Celtics. The problem is they have issues that they can't solve right now, and they don't know whether moving Marcus makes them better or not. They're in a weird spot, man.
and he's
They're
the
in a
only
weird
guy
spot.
that you can move out of the big four.
They're in a weird spot,
think it's
and
fair to
everybody
say that
else
Rob's
stays.
past
So
him.
yeah, you're not. It's the only thing that could possibly you sacrifice what he gives you and hope that the thing you get back possibly makes you better, and that's why people talk about it. Even the people, I actually don't think there's that many. I hate Marcus Smart, get him out of town, guys. I think most of the people are viewing it that way, who are like, trade him. It's time
There's
for something
some.
new.
Well,
But
it's
there are
all or
some.
nothing. That's the thing. A lot of
There
those
are
Celtics
some.
fans
There
all
are
or
some.
There's
nothing.
I'm not one of those guys. I'm not. I think his value is. I think we've created this mythical figure, protean figure out of Marcus Smart that isn't real,
All right,
but I think
all
he's
right,
got
Dan.
value.
All right, he hasn't made this all defensive team in a bit. You made that point.
He's
So-
fine. He's good, man. He's
I get what
good.
you're saying.
He's good, and they're
I'm just
better with
thinking
him on the.
about- I'm just thinking about those post-game shows when they were in the bubble, and John was just like, "He's not a world-class defender." Why did
He
everyone
wasn't.
say this?
The year
I
I
never-
talked about him, he was not as good a defender, and he even admitted it. And then it was
Yeah.
clear, like it wasn't. I wasn't making that up. He's
That
much
was
better
last
this
year,
year.
yeah.
He's much
I'm just
better.
bringing it up. Yeah.
I'm bracing for them to do nothing at the deadline, and man, will that stink. I don't think you can afford to do nothing right now with where the team's at. You got to pick a direction here of some sort. I keep saying it over and over again, and
Yeah.
I don't think a mild buy like Ross is that sort of thing. You need something a little more future-facing that actually impacts this roster for years to come.
And Bobby's got
that-
some
Yeah,
creative
but-
suggestions about that on the CLNS Media website if you want to check it out. He's got an interesting trade. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
I think that's the way to do a clear out if you want to do it. We talked about it last night, so we won't go over it again. But
Yep.
I think that's a good opportunity that's all of a sudden out there for Boston if they want to go in that direction. But
Yeah.
it'd be a bold one to take.
All right, guys, let's wrap it. Final thoughts here on this or anything going forward?
Keep your eyes on Marcus. Keep your eyes. Yeah, keep your eyes on Marcus, especially against teams like Miami, because that's a tough out. You know, hypothetically, if these two teams meet in the playoffs, let's see how we'll use this as a point of reference, right? With Marcus and the way he's been lately, and the way things have sort of been, seems like a little bit of a turmoil. This is usually when you get the best version of Marcus, and that's exactly what we've been seeing. I want to see it against top-notch teams like Miami. So let's keep our eyes on Marcus. That's mine.
The Heat are gonna smash these guys. They are going to knock them on their ass. Miami's been a badass team all year. I mean, the way they integrate
I love
talent in and
Miami.
out, the
Yeah.
Butler's playmaking. I mean, you want to see what it takes to be a guy at that level. You just watch him for another game. They're gonna throw some zone at you, and we saw that one a couple years ago. Bam's out there. They're fully healthy now. They got shooters. They got versatile defenders. I don't think Monday's going to be pretty, especially when the Heat start to turn up some runs against you. But the Celtics did beat them earlier in the year.
This
so,
is always they have no chance game, and you know they're going to come out and win.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because you know what?
You
Like
have
the
more
Phoenix-
shot
like the
making
Suns.
between the two stars. That's still the
Suns
thing
win.
you have on them.
Look, at the end of the day, if the Celtics like to, you always had like national TV rondo and stuff like that. Like if the Celtics are going to look at a moment and say, we got to bring it, it's here because you will get punked bad against the Heat without a top effort. You cannot half-ass your way again. I mean, you've seen the Heat could go on one of those extremely ice cold shooting sort of, but you can't. It's too well coached a team, and they just have gritty guys, and they will expose you, and they'll make you look really friggin' bad if you don't bring it. So you need maximum focus, maximum effort. I hope this is one they come out with. We'll see it. We're back on Tuesday once again.
Monday, right?
Monday,
Yeah,
rather.
Monday.
Sorry. Thanks to Josue and Sherrod, who are in New Orleans, friggin' on the road. I hope you guys are doing something good tonight. Come
I'm
on.
I'm about to go for shoveling round 3.
I'm not doing it, man. I'm not doing it. I'm gonna stay here forever. I just keep looking outside. I don't want to do it.
You haven't gone out once?
Forget about it. With the
Oh,
snow
good luck.
drifts, you shovel and it's right back there. I'll deal with it tomorrow.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah. No thanks, buddy.
All right, guys. Fun show.
We'll
Enjoy,
see you-
guys.
Thanks for joining, everybody.